Good evening, Dominica. A pleasant good evening to you. Welcome to another episode of Roots Connections on Q with your host, Simone Mathieu. It is great to be back with you for another episode of Roots Connections. So, whether you're joining us from Kashaku to Capuchin, we are happy that you're here with us this evening for another episode of Roots Connections on Q. This is our number one program for exploring everything in the world that is changing, because as we know, the only constant in this world around us is change. So this program is all about navigating the changing world that we live in and how we can position ourselves and Dominica by extension to reap the benefits of this changing. So we look at what in the world is changing, new approaches we should consider adopting in various aspects of our lives, the challenges and opportunities that come with change. And all this is accomplished by inviting our Dominican experts at home and abroad to guide us through these changes. As we continue, we are always praying for our country, Dominica, all the challenges we face. We keep in mind our vulnerable citizens of Dominica, including little Kanisha Etienne. We continue to pray for the vulnerable in our country. We also pray for vulnerable women such as Velma Valmon and Avenel Charles. So we are happy to be here with you as we continue to journey on. So this is episode number 44 of Roots Connections on Q, and today we have a packed program for you as always, and we are going to be looking at how the practice of law is evolving, the changes and the benefits we may all we may all realize for this change. So again, how the practice of law is evolving and changing, and the benefits we may all realize from these changes. If you're joining us on Facebook, we are happy that you're here with us. We are live on Q95 FM radio. I will go ahead and share it to Push Past 10 in just a little while. And we're also live on YouTube at Q95 FM radio. So as you come on the Facebook Live, I'm already going to start looking out for you. You can go ahead and share the live. Tremaine Hemans, superstar actor Jude. So Jude, your folks are already showing up, so that's great. So go ahead and share the live as you come on in. Remember, for the best of daily programming, you want to check out Q95DA.com, Q95DA.com for all the best of daily programming and all the past episodes of Roots Connections and our other programs. For example, Tamika, make sure your mic is muted, please. I can hear a little feedback. For example, our last episode of Roots Connections, we looked at honoring our sports legends such as Irvin Shillingford and how we can create a legacy to secure the future of our youth in the field of sports. So that was our last program. But this evening, we have another packed program for you. Our panel is here with us, and we're going to ask Miss Chelsea Frampton and Miss Tamika Jude to unmute their mics as they introduce themselves and they tell us a little bit about the area of law that they practice. And then we're saving our third guest as a surprise, because you're going to tell me who our third guest is. You're going to be part of the program this evening. So Chelsea, let's begin with you. Unmute your mic and tell us who you are while I share the live all over the place.
Hi, good evening to all our listeners, both here and abroad. Thank you, Simone, for inviting me. My name is Chelsea Frampton, and I am from Dominica. I practice mainly in civil law. I have been an attorney at law for about 9 years now, and I am employed at the Prevo Roberts and Associates Chambers located in Roseau. And my area, as I mentioned, is mainly civil law, which encompasses a wide range of areas, including companies, probates, dealing with estates, dealing with a wide range of civil suits, a lot of debt matters or mortgage claims. We deal with registration of title. We deal with a wide range of land matters and disputes. These are just some of the matters and areas that I deal with in my practice.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being with us, Chelsea. We are looking forward to your contribution. Miss Tamika Jude out there in Florida. So Chelsea's in Dominica, Tamika is in Florida, and our final guest is in Texas. So we're covering all angles this evening. Tamika, tell us about you.
Hi, good evening to all our listeners and the people who are viewing us on live tonight. My name is Tamika Jude. I am an immigration attorney. I currently practice immigration law in all 50 states. I have clients in all parts of the world: Africa, India, Australia, Madagascar. I represent people pretty much all over the world with regards to US immigration law. I have my own practice. I started my practice in May 2021, and since then it's been thriving. What else? I'm from Dominica. I already said that, right? I'm just happy to be here this evening. Happy to meet the other panelists like Professor James and Miss Frampton, and just happy to share with you guys this evening.
Yes, absolutely. So, two very important areas I think many of us have concerns about. Many of us have left Dominica or planning on leaving Dominica to pursue career, personal, and educational goals. So, I'm happy we have an immigration attorney with us to advise us in that area. Many of us have personal legal challenges in Dominica, whether it surrounds who has the will and is not willing to share the will so we can know who the land belongs to, that pesky neighbor that has been bothering us, that we need to sell, how we said in Dominica, we need to send a lawyer paper to them. So we have a lot of areas to cover this evening, but here is how I want to introduce our guest. So I see we have quite an audience on Facebook already. So let's see who will be the first to tell us who our third guest is. So take a listen. Guys, can you just nod to let me know that you can hear the music? Can you hear it?
Listen here, 10:30 in the morning, I hearing people crying, the rain falling, children screaming, making an inspection. I see vast destruction in the city, from the country. So I put on my bionic suit to take a look. I see old King David smiling like a crook. He tell me, Shaggy, I not making destruction. I just making a tour of the Caribbean. I tired, stay up here drinking milk and honey. I come down on a joy spree. Say he lives Solomon in heaven, eating the bread that of leaven.
All right, so I think we get the picture. We get the picture. So let's see. All right, we have the answer. King Shaky is in the house, a true Dominican legend in so many areas. Professor James, we are happy to have you on board for this program. Can you introduce yourself a little bit to us? And I also know, while we have you on the mic, that Dr. Alwyn Booley was a significant figure in your life. He was a significant figure in your musical career and your life personally. So I know you want to share a little bit about the impact that Dr. Alwyn Booley had on you as we celebrate his life as well. So Dr. James, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I am pleased to be here. And you're quite right. Dr. Booley was very, very important in my life. You've already told people my name. I'm King Shaky. And my students, I'm a law professor. My students do not call me Professor James. They call me King Shaky.
Really?
Yeah. And some get even better. They call me Shakes, or, they don't just call me Shaky by itself. They call me Shakes or King Shakes or King Shaky. And that's all right with me. I'm a member of the New York State Bar Association, and all my letters from the New York State Bar Association begin, Dear King Shaky. I say, yeah, that's cool, you know. So, beyond the shores of Dominica, I'm known as King Shaky, and that's fun. That's a good thing. Um, so I'm a law professor. I teach at Texas Tech University School of Law. I've been there since 2001. Before that, I was teaching at Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York. I still have a law office in Syracuse, New York, and the law office in Texas because I still practice law. I've been practicing for ages. And apart from that, I serve as the Public Affairs and Religious Liberty Director of the New York Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. I'm an ordained Seventh-day Adventist minister. You say, who sings Calypso and he's an ordained minister? Well, yeah, up here, no big deal.
Right.
I know in Dominica, that would be a problem. But
right, you're right.
Not up here. So, I'll tell you, the first time I sang Calypso in the United States was when I was a student at Andrews University, which is like the mecca of Seventh-day Adventism. And we had a big thing for the president of the Inter-American Division, of which Dominica is a part. And they asked me would I entertain by singing some Calypso music at Andrews University. So I did that, and I've just kept on singing since then. So what else can I say about myself? You know, I was born in a lovely village called Collyho, or that beautiful village. Grew up between Collyho and Layou and St. Joseph, so I'm just an all-round Dominican. Now, Alwyn Bully, you mentioned him, and Alwyn just meant so very much to me. I was a shy, skinny kid. And one day I was at my home practicing my music with my brothers, with my cousin Joey Lloyd. Joey sings Calypso now. He's the explosion, I understand.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so that's my cousin. And we were home just playing my music. And Alwyn Bully, Mikey Bruni, and Einstein LeBlanc, they came by to get the keys for the Aurora Hall in St. Joseph. My father was the school principal, and he had the keys. And they came to get the keys because they were putting on a play at the People's Action Theater, putting on a play at Aurora Hall. And they heard me practicing my songs. I was preparing for the 1977 grammar school GGS Calypso King competition, although I was a student at Sifokol then. And they listened to me and spoke to my dad and my uncle. My uncle, by the way, was a Catholic priest, Reverend Father Edward Alexander, and spoke to them and said, we'd like to sponsor him to sing in the senior Calypso King competition. Well, you know how it is in Dominica. Your parents make the decisions when you're a kid, right? So my parents and my uncle, they said, sure, sponsor him. And then they told me that I was going to sing in the senior Calypso King competition. And so it was from 1977, I found myself singing in the Calypso King competition. And I lost to solo by a point and a quarter.
Wow.
I'm pretty close to winning. A point and a quarter, I lost by that. But my song for 77, a song called Deba Pu Deba, became a road match song for 1977. You said, I guess you remember that one.
Yes, I do.
So that was the road match song. Next in line was a song by Zay called Try It You Like It. And the third in line for the road match was a song by Solo called Mass in the Cemetery. But Deba Pu Deba, a road match song, I was a 16-year-old road match Calypso King of Dominica, 1978. Wow. And then I went on from there. But the important thing why I'm telling you stories because it was all because of Alwyn Bully. The lady who is his wife now, Anita Bully, and I spoke to her just this morning, and she was Anita Astafan back then, and Mikey Bruni and Einstein LeBlanc. Alwyn designed every costume I ever wore on stage. His girlfriend, who became his wife, would do all the sewing, and Mikey was my manager. Einstein did all the odd jobs and so on. And they put together something called King Shaky Promotions, and they turned this 15-year-old shy kid into a Calypso King.
Wow.
And after I won the senior crown in 1979, as an 18-year-old, a fellow called Mighty Sparrow came passing by and had me audition, and he hired me, and I moved from Dominica to Trinidad. And people say I still have a Trini accent. I don't think so. But when I moved to Trinidad, we went to sing in the Sparrow's Young Brigade Calypso tent. And that's where I recorded that song you just heard, David Blow. The truth is, I wasn't in Dominica for Hurricane David. Whatever I heard about David, I heard on television. But I wrote the song anyway, recorded it in Trinidad, and it became a song that I didn't imagine it would become. It became a really big hit, went to number one on the charts. I still collect royalties on that song.
Wow.
But again, it's all thanks to Alwyn, Mikey, Anita, and Einstein. And I'll tell you something, right? Why I honor Alwyn's memory and Mikey's memory also, because Mikey died so much, because those guys did so much for me. And as a 16-year-old kid winning the road match crown and being first runner-up in the competition, I had, in Dominican terms, a lot of money, you know. And so I went to them and said, here, you know, take your share. And they said, Shaky, we don't want any share of your money. I said, but you guys did so much. I said, no, we're not doing this for money. We're doing this for the fun of it. I said, really? They said, yeah, you keep your money. We don't want any of your money. And year after year, the same thing would happen. These guys never took 1 penny from me. For all the years they worked with me and made me what I became, they wouldn't take 1 penny. So I went over to Royal Bank. There was a Royal Bank of Canada on the Bayfront, and there was a Barclays Bank.
Yeah, Tamika, mute, please. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Professor.
So I went to these banks and I opened what they used to call in those days time deposits. I guess now we'd call them CDs. So I was a 16-year-old kid with time deposits, thanks to Alwyn, Mikey, Einstein, and Anita, who didn't take 1 penny of my money. So when the time came for me to go to college, I had money already, you know, and here am I.
And you know, Professor, you know, you're just reiterating so much of everything everyone has said, how selfless Alwyn was in terms of just giving to Dominica. And I'm so happy that we continue to honor his legacy. But as I always say, we have to build on the legacy that our heroes, such as Alwyn Bully, have left for us by encouraging the next generation to continue and encouraging the authorities to do something, not just to honor his memory, but to continue to build on the legacy. So I'm so happy that you were able to, he was able to have that impact on your life, and you were able to share with us how he impacted your life. And again, I want to thank our guests for being here, Chelsea, Tamika, Professor James, thank you for being here. We are eternally grateful for the guests that take the time off to be on the program. But this evening as well, I want to make sure that we thank those in the background who silently help us with this program. So for example, we had Mr. Tad Black Pepper James recommend Tamika. We had Mrs. Doreen Shillingford recommend Professor James. And then we had Mrs. Frances Ann Satney out there in St. Kitts, former manager of Royal Bank, and my godmother recommend Chelsea to the program. So we just want to take a minute this evening to just thank those who's working quietly in the background to ensure that this program continues to run. And of course, we thank Mr. G and the Q95 FM family, Lambi on the console, who will take our phone calls in a little while, showing, and DJ Shan in the background. So again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about how the practice of law is evolving and changing, and the benefits we may realize from these changes. Because I think when we think about the law, the things that usually come to our mind are human and civil rights, right? So we think about the importance of electoral reform. We think about the importance of ensuring that the laws surrounding the building of the international airport are followed. But this evening, I want us to look at how the law can personally benefit us and what is changing, what is evolving, so that we can receive benefits from those changes. So I want to go ahead and get started with you, Chelsea, because I think one of the things that we talked about is the cost savings that on both the client and the lawyer's side, that the changes in particular technology is bringing to the forefront. So let's begin there.
Yes, thank you, Simone. Well, I just want to inform the audience that Right now, we have what is called the e-litigation portal. So this is basically a system where lawyers, legal practitioners, and litigants, we'll get to that, self-represented litigants, can actually file documents on the portal. And this portal is basically a system where you are able to file at your office. You don't need to go to the registry like before when you had that over-the-counter filing. But I want to note that this is for new matters only. So those matters which were already there before the portal continue as normal. The system you file over the counter. However, there's a need to migrate these matters onto the portal. But that will take a process because you require a lot of manpower to do that because it would entail a lot of scanning of documents to get it onto the portal. So when we're looking at the portal, I can now sit in my office and file a document right there. I don't need to go to the registry. I don't need to buy stamps. There's a system where you pay on to an account and then all your filing fees are there. You don't have to go to the post office to purchase stamps anymore. So that is really, really great. And the access is important, not only to us as legal practitioners, but to litigants. So we're able to access the portal at any time. So I can see a court file at any time of the day. I could be abroad in another country and see what matters I have coming up. Whereas before you couldn't have the court file on you. And it also shows like the accuracy and it eliminates discrepancies. So exactly what is on the portal is what the court has and is what I have in my file because that's all we filed. So that's the important part, that you save a number of costs in relation to that. You don't have to, go to the registry to do a number of things anymore. You can sit in your office, like I mentioned, and file. And then when we get to the self-represented litigants, there is what you call a service bureau at the registry. So, for example, a person who is not, or who has not engaged a lawyer can go to the registry where the service bureau will then assist them in the filing of their matters, or if they want to respond to a matter that's been filed against them. Obviously, they have to pay the filing fees as normal, but there is that service bureau that's available, which would not have been there before the litigation portal came, into being. So you have a number of costs being saved there. It's greater access to justice. I mean, I think it's seamless, it's cost effective, it's transparent because exactly what the court has that you filed is exactly what is, in the file. There is no need for example, a document to just, end up in your file or so on. So, it allows just more efficient time management. It shortens the time that you would have to do for stuff. Also, the portal is available, although there are business hours for the registry between, 8 and 4 and so on for filing documents. The portal is available all throughout. So you don't have to rely on those business hours, although it will only be filed per se, like the stamp on your document will only basically capture the business hours of the registry, but you can file the documents at any time. You're able to look at your files at any time. So, I mean, I think we've moved in a good direction. And in relation to that, we also have the court and Zoom sessions, which I don't know if you want me to get into right now.
Yeah, we'll go into that in just a minute. But the question I want to ask you is this portal widely, oh my God, I'm eating my words this evening, widely available to attorneys in Dominica? So do we find that most attorneys are using this portal in Dominica?
Yes, they have to. For all new matters, you must within civil litigation, and the portal is available for Court of Appeal, High Court matters, non-contentious probate matters, administration of estates, family matters, matrimonial adoption. These are what it's currently available for, and any new matter that is filed, it has to be filed through the portal. You can't go over the counter. Like I said, the matters that were there before the portal came in, and the portal came into Dominica around August 2021. That's when we actually started using it. And from then, any matter that is filed has to be filed through the portal and that online system. But the thing about it is you still have to actually draft the documents and scan them and upload them to the portal and file it. It's not an automatic system. And apart from that, we had the companies. So the company's registry actually started an online system way before this. like in around 2016. So we've been filing companies online for a while. And now we have the e-litigation portal and the civil area going into that. And soon other areas, if the law, the criminal law, etc., will come on board. But that will take some time.
Yeah, so I can certainly see, I think we can certainly see the benefits of that. Now, let's stay in the realm of technology as I come over to you, Tamika, because I know, for example, you completely embrace technology in your immigration practice, and you have to, considering that you have clients all over the world. And then Professor James, once Tamika is finished speaking, I want you to tell us about if the laws are keeping up with the technology, because we're seeing all these rapid changes in the area of law and in many areas. But I want to know if the law on the books, we know that, you write law books for various universities. So I want to know if the laws are keeping up with all the changes that technology is introducing to our world. But before we have you respond to that, Tamika, let me find out from you how you are embracing technology and how it is benefiting your clients.
Okay, so for technology in the realm of immigration, it's a lot. I guess I would say it's some practitioners do not embrace it. For now, we have the option to file some forms online, and some people can paper file. Some forms cannot be filed online. Some forms you can only file them online. So I know a lot of practitioners are resisting because with any type of technology, there's usually glitches and they feel like, this is not working, the site keeps crashing. However, I have actually discovered that, and a lot of people ask me this. The reason why I have so many quick approvals is my cases are majority e-filed. And with e-filing, if you know exactly how to put in the information, because I mean, it's hit or miss sometimes, but in reality, I have noticed that the cases I file online usually get approved a little bit quicker. And that is because they don't have to manually scan the forms in. You don't have to wait for a receipt notice. Everything is instant. With regards to the immigration court, for example, people filing for asylum have 1 year. There's a 1 year deadline to file for asylum. So I've had people come to me like literally, I had a guy come to me 3 days before his 1 year deadline. And I was able to file his, skeletal asylum application online within that time to, allow him to keep his 1 year deadline. I think one important distinction is that in our court system here for the immigration court, it doesn't matter what time you submit it, as long as you submit it before midnight, it is filed on that day. So if you have a filing deadline, as long as you file it before midnight, the court is going to stamp it as being filed the same day that you filed it. So that is pretty cool. Um, Doing consultations, I've had to do consultations on WhatsApp, consultations on Zoom, phone consultations, and that actually helps me to be more competitive because some attorneys only do in office. Now, a lot of people, because of their busy schedules, are not able to physically come to the office. So I have people run into the bathroom on their lunch break to do a consultation. I have people who like step out to their car to do consultations. Have people at events for their children actually just step to the side and do a quick consultation. So that is actually one way that I think technology is very helpful in my practice.
Yes, thank you for that. Professor James, so how are the laws keeping up with all these changes that we're seeing around us?
Yes, they are, at least here in Texas and in New York. Understand that I'm licensed to practice in Texas, in New York. I'm also licensed to practice in the federal courts and before the tax court and before, that's it, United States tax court and before the Internal Revenue Service. And yeah, the laws are keeping up. In fact, in Texas, e-filing is mandatory. We must e-file. And they've done things so that whatever time you e-file, that's the time that gets stamped on your document. In fact, there's a case I was working on with my co-counsel. We worked together, Dwight McDonald, and we were working until after 1 in the morning. So we filed at 1:22 in the morning. And the next morning, shortly after 8, I got a call from Judge Head. And I say, hi, Judge, what's up? He goes, don't you guys sleep? I said, why, Judge? Why do you ask? He says, you guys file these papers at 1:22 in the morning. I told him, well, Judge, we are professors and we practice law, so we have to work at weird hours. So things have so moved forward that whatever time you file, that's the time that it gets stamped. And we like that, Now, in other areas of the law, and I mentioned this here in Texas, there's a book I write. It comes out every 2 years called Texas Elder Law. And it's a handbook for lawyers, and I also use it to teach my elder law class. The Texas legislature meets every 2 years. They don't meet every couple months. It's every 2 years. And they pass the laws. And they meet from January until about May to June. And I have to have that book ready by the time the fall semester starts, because I teach elder law in the fall. That's how quickly I have to get things done. Mm-hmm. As the laws change, I have to be able to get these laws, update the book, and have the book published in time for the start of the fall semester. Mm-hmm. The book is published by a company in New York called in Washington, D.C., called Full Court Press. They also have a subsidiary called Fast Case. And what they do is they make, I'll mention cases and statutes. And if you buy an online e-version of the book, you're able to click and get the case pulled up right away. That's how much things are moving into making things available to people online. Mm-hmm. And I just love it.
Right. And the question I want to throw out for the entire panel is, I think for many of us, we ask the question to ourselves, when do you need a lawyer? So are there certain things that we can do on our own, for example, in regards to immigration, in regards to a civil dispute? So when do we actually need a lawyer? Can we use mediation? Can we use legal aid instead of a lawyer? So at what stage would you recommend making sure that you're using a lawyer to be most efficient? So Chelsea, let me come over to you. When do we need a lawyer, or can we just, file the papers ourselves and it will be just fine? Or, you recommend using a lawyer most times to ensure that you get the outcome that you're hoping for?
Yeah, I definitely would recommend using a lawyer, and not because I am one, but I think in this day and age, there are lots of issues, legal issues that arise with the tiniest things. People think that, they could just go ahead and get through with it. And then when they end up in trouble, then they come to lawyers to fix that issue. Mm-hmm. By that time, sometimes they could have probably resolved it if they had first consulted with a lawyer. Yeah, so I think that although, and that's one of my points, that although we are lawyers, we do recommend a lot of alternative dispute resolution. So I encourage mediation a lot, but that's obviously coming to a lawyer. The parties will discuss the matter, and then they can recommend a mediator to handle the dispute. Because I do agree settling it out of court. Again, that saves cost and time, because going to a trial, sometimes we know that our court system is very backlogged. We don't necessarily have that time to hear matters. If you file a matter today, you will probably hear it maybe 4 years from now. And that's no joke. That's just how the system is. And well, obviously, apart from emergency situations, etc., I'm just talking in general, a general civil, matter would probably take that length of time. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage people to get lawyers. And it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean you're going to court. It just means to consult on an issue which they can guide you through. And if it is that it can be mediated, then you save a lot of time. And when in mediation, you come to an agreement that is suitable for the parties. The lawyers don't really do anything during mediation. The mediator is there to guide the process, and the lawyers will basically just be there, to consult with their clients. But the parties are the persons who come to their agreements, and which is much better than the court deciding in the end. So we always encourage alternative dispute resolution, which includes mediation, arbitration, and so forth. And yes, so.
Yeah, and everything boils down to money. So I think our audience is probably thinking, well, which one is more affordable, if I do the mediation or if I go to court?
Yeah, well, generally, just to tell you that if you file a matter in the court, there's always the opportunity for mediation, because we have what is called court-connected mediation. So, for example, if the parties agree, they file the suit, and The parties agree on the hearing of the matter. That is the first hearing, not to say like the trial. That this is an issue that can be mediated among the parties. Then what will happen is the judge will make an order for mediation, and the parties will then go to mediation with a court-appointed mediator in order to settle the matter. And if they do come to an agreement, that's the end of the matter. You don't have to go through trial. You don't have to wait on a day 4 years from now or 2 years from now.
Right.
So our court process does allow for mediation, and it is something that a lot of the judges encourage. So
yeah, and I want to come back to you eventually, Chelsea, as we look at the more popular cases that come to you and how people can be maybe proactive to ensure that it doesn't get to the point where a lawyer is involved and courts are involved. So I want you to start thinking about some of the more civil litigation, civil disputes that come to you. But Tamika, let me come to you, and then Professor James, I'll come back to you. Tamika, immigration. Such a very important field of law to be in. But the question that comes to mind, and we were talking about when do you need a lawyer versus doing it on your own. So, are there some immigration processes that can be done efficiently by someone without involving a lawyer? Because let's just be honest, once we include a lawyer, you have to pay. Right? In addition to the filing fees for the immigration, you have to pay a lawyer. And then the other thing I think might be interesting to our audience is knowing, for example, if you overstay on that visitor's visa and on that school visa, what are the implications when you're trying to, potentially get a green card, potentially get a legitimate stay in the US? So just some questions I think our audience might have as we have the privilege of having an immigration lawyer on the panel this evening.
First things first. I will say that a lot of people do file on their own and get approved. Great, right? The issue of when do you need a lawyer? Definitely, if you have any criminal history, if you've ever overstayed a visa, you need to speak to an attorney before filing anything. If you probably came through the border or something, you were paroled, but you came with small children, you definitely need a lawyer because most likely you're going to be inadmissible for alien smuggling. It's not really a question of when can you safely file on your own, and I'll explain this. I've had people who came to me, very straightforward cases that they got denied. Why? They didn't understand how to do the paperwork. I hear people say all lawyers do for immigration is just the forms. If you can read and write, you can do it yourself. And every single person, even people with PhDs that have come to me for denied petition, can read, write, and are very intelligent people. Immigration is a different animal. Any type of law, everybody thinks, oh, it's, I can read and write. The only type of law that I see people really, really try to use lawyers for is criminal, which I think is very funny because even in criminal, you find some people going to court without a lawyer thinking they can explain themselves. But in reality, whether you're going to file on your own or not, I think it's important to speak to an attorney so that they can analyze your case and let you know exactly what you should, be doing, whether you should file on your own or whether an attorney specifically needed for your matter. So citizenship is available online, and a lot of people go ahead and file the citizenship on their own. However, there's a lot of people who do get denied because they do not understand the law in terms of physical presence and other things. Simone, you are frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think your internet is probably acting up. Everybody else can hear and see me, right? Can you guys hear and see me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Tamika, I think
Okay, what was the last
yes.
thing you heard?
Simone, you're
What was the last thing you
frozen.
heard? Okay, so yes, I was saying that a lot of people get their citizenship denied because they filed it not knowing the physical presence. Dominicans, especially, have had this issue. People think they can just come to the US once a year because they get to keep their green card. They think after 5 years they can apply for citizenship. You cannot. You need to have the continuous presence in the United States. So going back and forth and then filing for citizenship is going to most likely have you either issued a notice of intent to deny, and you have to explain to them why you did not abandon your green card. And in some situations, people's green cards are revoked, and they're also sometimes put in removal proceedings. So there are very serious implications to filing immigration paperwork without an attorney, especially when there are issues that you may not even know you have. So it's just important, I would say, do a little consultation. 150, 200, some lawyers charge 300, but at least at the end of that consultation, you will be very clear on eligibility, and you will know whether or not you even qualify for this. I've seen people apply for green cards with no basis. They don't have a US citizen spouse, they don't have a US citizen child. They just go and they file a form because someone told them that's the form to apply for a green card. Then they get denied, and now they're in removal proceedings, and they're calling my office panicking. So it's always important for immigration, speak to an attorney. Whether you think your case is simple or not, just speak to an attorney and actually let them tell you, hey, this is simple enough. You might be able to get, through on your own. If you need any guidance, some attorney do document review. Now, in terms of the overstay question, right now, as of April 2023, something has changed. The visa bulletin has regressed, which means if you are married to a green card holder or you're the underage child of a green card holder and you overstay, you're not going to be able to apply. First of all, right now, you still can't apply for adjustment of status if you're the immediate relative of a green card holder. So if you're over 21 and your mom just filed for you last year and you overstayed, you cannot get a green card within the US. It is not possible. I know they accepted your application. I know they gave you a work permit. I know you know somebody's neighbor's auntie cousin who did it and got through, but it just does not work that way. But the new thing that happened now is a spouse of a green card holder, even if you're legally in the US, if you apply for adjustment of status, the issue you're going to have is the priority date is not current. So your case will not be adjudicated until that is current. And for next year, next month, the priority date is actually going back to 2020. So that means if you're filing in 2023, you have a few years to wait before you're even eligible for a green card. So it's very important to know that an overstay, unless you're an immediate relative, is definitely going to prevent you from getting a green card within the US. It is possible to get a green card, but there's going to be waivers involved, waivers of your unlawful presence, and you're going to have to leave and go back to your country and consular process once that is, happening. With regards to married to a green card holder or your parents is a green card holder, as long as you're an immediate relative, meaning a spouse, parent, or child under 21, once they naturalize, you will be able at that time to do so. But if you're over 21 or your parent is a green card holder and you're already 19, then you should not overstay because you're just going to hurt your chances. You're better off going back home and waiting it out in your country than staying here illegally, because then you kind of put yourself in a box where your only option becomes leave with a waiver or get married. And not everybody's looking for love, and you can't get married just for a green card. So it's very
Yeah,
important
and
that
I'm,
you
I'm
understand that.
Yeah, and I'm happy you say that, because one of the topics I want us to come back and explore is the concept of marrying for a green card, and also how do you best improve your chances of just getting a visa to travel to the US. So many of us want to come over to the US, maybe just to visit initially and then eventually make our residence in the US. But I want to come back to you a little bit later and find out, if you are trying to apply for a visa to come to the US, what are your best options? What do you need to have in place to ensure that you stand a better chance of getting that visa to come to the US? So if you're just joining us, this is Roots Connections on Q95, and we're talking about how the practice of law is evolving and changing, and the benefits that we can all benefit from with regards to the law. Professor James, let me come over to you. So I know that your area of expertise, one of your areas, is the practice of the rights of the elderly. So can you tell us more about this?
Well, it's called elder law. And what we do in elder law is we advocate for the elderly, the senior citizens. We look at wills, trusts, estate administration, public benefits available to the elderly, social security, the entire gamut as to what the elderly can benefit from, and also how to prepare for old age. You asked a question earlier about when does someone need a lawyer.
Yes.
And I tell my students, you should get an elder law attorney as soon as you graduate from college. You see, from college? Like, yeah, because you have to start preparing, because elder law actually covers not just senior citizens, but people with special needs. You see, here in America, we don't say people who are disabled, we say people with special needs. So people with special needs are also covered by the elder law statutes. And so you can never tell what will happen to you, right? Life is a funny, funny thing. In 2016, spring break 2016, my kids and I were in Houston enjoying spring break, and I kept missing the exits to go to a hotel. And my kids are laughing at me. It's like, Dad, what's up with you? Why can't you take the exit? And I said, I passed the exit? I said, yeah, didn't you see it? It's like, no. I said, what's wrong with you? Eventually, I went to a doctor, and he said, there's something wrong with your eyesight. You can't see properly. Well, look at here am I, you know. On Friday this week, I'm having an MRI because the doctor said I have a brain tumor, which is squeezing down on my optic nerve and is preventing me from seeing. They're either going to open up my skull and get the brain tumor out, or they're going to leave it here, and who knows what will happen, right? But you never know what will happen. That's the point. And because you do not know what will happen, get an elder law attorney as soon as you graduate from college. Why college? Because before then you don't have any money, you have no responsibility. And then after you get that elder law attorney, whenever there's a life-changing event, like you get married, you get divorced, you have a baby dies, you adopt a child, whatever, there's a life-changing event, go to the attorney and update your documents, because life changes and your situation changes. Sure, it costs money because the elder law attorney has children. I have 3 of them myself. You know, you have children, you have to raise the children, and so they need to make money. So yeah, you have to pay them for their services. But by all means, I like what Chelsea said, by all means, get an attorney. Don't run away from it. And if you can't afford it, you know, there are legal aid clinics, which will get you an attorney for free. There are law school clinics. I used to run the tax clinic at Texas State University until my eyesight decided to part company. It's difficult to run a tax clinic when you can't see. But there are clinics that will help you if you cannot afford. But by all means, get an attorney to help you as you navigate things through life.
Yeah.
The law.
Yes, and Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a familiar area of law in Dominica? Elder law, are you familiar with that in Dominica?
No, I haven't heard of elder law, but
yeah,
I think one of the important areas I would want to say in relation to what Professor James said was, that's what one of the issues that I would raise, that you need a lawyer for preparation of wills and so on, because that's one of the areas that I see quite frequently in my practice. The issues dealing with estates and so on. So that is really important.
Yeah, and coming back to you, Professor James, because I think Chelsea is right in terms of the preparations of wills and estates. And I think in many circumstances in Dominica, you know, we are under the impression, well, you know, I don't own anything, I this, I that, and the other, and then that kind of gets in the way of us preparing documents. And we have this mentality in Dominica, I don't know what it is, but from the time you mention life insurance, a will, everybody's like, hey, but you want me to die, man? And it's unfortunate. It is so truly unfortunate, because it raises the idea of, you know, our mortality, that we're not here forever. And we find so much resistance and reluctance with regards to our parents and those who are coming up in age, wanting to create a will, to prepare a will. And life insurance is another topic, but getting life insurance to protect everything that they've worked for. So Professor James, if you were to advise those of us who are coming up in age in Dominica, what would be your advice to protect your assets as we age in Dominica?
Well, I'll tell you first of all that it's not in Dominica alone. I teach large classes. My classes number of over 100 children, 100 students, as I teach my wills, trust, and estates class. And the majority of them will tell me that the parents do not have wills. And as the semester progresses, and I tell the students, tell your parents about getting a will, the parents typically respond just what you say. Oh, I see. So you want me to die. So now you want me to have a will. Huh? You're planning for me to die. So now you want to have a will. But we get towards the end of the semester, and then the parents are saying, yeah, I think I should get a will. Based on all that your professor has told you, yeah, I should get a will. So it's a matter of educating people. And not only in Dominica, but here in Texas, in New York, everywhere, there's a necessity to have a will. Because if you do not have a will, the intestacy statute kicks in. The intestacy statute was created by the legislature. I like to tell my students, the legislature draws that thing up. It's not really the elected members of parliament to do it. It's some lawyers who stay up late at night working. They drink lots of booze and then they write lots of nonsense. and that becomes the law. So it's a lot of foolishness in the intestacy statute. You don't want that to determine how your estate will be distributed. You want to have a say as to what will happen. So get a will by all means. No matter what you have, get a will so that you determine who will take what. I've noticed that as soon as somebody dies, people begin to change, and people begin to fight. I have cases in court. You know who's fighting? Brothers and sisters fighting each other, and sisters fighting each other, or brothers fighting. That's who's fighting. I'm representing family members against family members. And that's because there's some weakness in the will. If the will had been written tightly and so on, there'd be no room to fight. And that's why I advocate for a very strong no contest clause that will make people tremble before they bring a will contest. We call it an in terrorem provision. It should terrorize people and say, oh my, I better not contest the will. Although here in Texas, we say, well, if it's brought for good cause, then it's okay. But still, get a will as early as possible. No matter what you have, don't say I have nothing. Get a will. And while you're getting a will, get some advance directives. We'll get to that. And I advocate for changes in statutes to allow advance directives and to allow declaration of guardianship. So far in the United States, only 3 states allow declaration of guardianships: Texas, Florida, and Nevada. Only 3 states. I was speaking at Fordham University School of Law last year, and I told them I'm on a campaign to get all the states to have statutes allowing for declaration of guardianship. I think Texas, Florida, and Nevada have it right. I know you're wondering, what is James talking about?
Yes, exactly. That was what I was about to ask. What is exactly is it?
Okay, guardianship law is such that someone looks at you and you've lost capacity, which takes me to another field that I talk about dementia. Let's talk about dementia, right?
Yes.
And so you're demented, and someone says, okay, mom is demented, someone needs to be the guardian. And the children meet and say there are 6 children. 3 vote for one child, 3 vote for the other. Oh, you can't decide who should be the guardian. So they go to court and they duke it out as to who should be the guardian. And nobody can agree. And so they get the pastor to be the guardian, or somebody else to be the guardian. And things are a mess. Or maybe the child who becomes a guardian is not the child the mother would have wanted to be the guardian. That's a mess. But that's the way the system is. That somebody has to go to court and say, I should be the guardian. And somebody else might say, no, that would be a terrible guardian. I won't be the guardian. And there they are fighting in court. Declaration of guardian allows somebody like me to sit down and say, should I ever lose capacity, which is quite possible, I don't know. Should I lose capacity? I want my daughter, Nellie Claire, to be my guardian. End of story. There's no fighting over it. Of course, my sons will say, I have 2 sons, 1 daughter, right? So the sons might say, well, we are the sons, we should be the guardian. But no, I want my daughter to be my guardian. It's written, it's filed. Should I ever lose capacity? My daughter takes it to court and says, my dad appointed me as his guardian. That's predetermined. Now, of course, if she grows up and starts misbehaving, I can change it. That's the beauty of it. So long as I have capacity, I can change and choose somebody else to be my guardian. Declaration of guardianship is something I advocate for strongly. I talk about it wherever I can. I teach lots of CLEs, continuing legal education. I teach lots of those, and I talk about this all the time. We need to have declaration of guardianship throughout the United States. I advocated for Dominica also.
Yeah, and you so I'm so happy you brought that up, Professor James, because even within my family, we're experiencing that right now. My dad's oldest brother died in Antigua. He was 93, so he lived a full life. But the question became over burial versus cremation. And we were having this conversation with them today where two of the siblings were voting for cremation, and the one who's a staunch Catholic was saying no burial. So you are right that if there had been a guardian appointed, that his will would have been done. And now they're asking the question, what would he have preferred? And there's no answer now because unfortunately he has gone to the great beyond. But these are important conversations to have. And just one other thing, Professor James, before I move on to Chelsea and Tamika, the question of elderly abuse. Because unfortunately in Dominica, we are hearing cases where the elderly is being abused financially, physically, and I hate to say sexually, but I've heard a case of a sexual abuse as well. So what are the protections in place? Chelsea has already told us that is not a field, as far as she knows, that is popular in Dominica. But what would be the recommendation for protecting the elderly from abuse and neglect in Dominica?
I recommend strong legislation to protect the elderly from abuse. And I'm happy that 2 years ago, the Texas legislature enacted a statute that says there's no statute of limitation for bringing a claim of elder abuse, whether it be financial abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And I'm so happy for that because I'm going to reveal a secret here, sort of. I wouldn't say the name, but I'm just waiting to get out of the hospital. I have to go to the hospital in Florida in July 17th. That's when they plan to do that skull cracking thing. But after they've done all that skull cracking thing and I can see again, one of the first actions I'm going to do is file a suit against somebody for elder abuse.
Oh, wow.
The abuse happened, and I have all the facts and everything, and I'm just waiting to get out of the hospital. I guess the person is hoping I do not survive this thing, but I pray I will, so I can bring that suit for elder abuse, because it's just ridiculous what has happened. And I'm happy that Texas has that kind of statute. I'd like to see it in Dominica. And let me just say here, let me make a plug here, if you don't mind, that my goal, after I get my eyesight back and I finally retire from teaching law, is to go back to Dominica. I want to go back to Dominica and open an Alzheimer's disease legal aid clinic. Now, note I say Alzheimer's disease because I'm big into dementia, but I think there are too many Black people, and I have nothing against non-Black people, but the facts are many Black people suffer from dementia. And Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia, many types of dementia. But Alzheimer's is a big one. And I want to go back to my homeland that gave me so much, and to open this legal aid clinic for people suffering from Alzheimer's. And maybe I'll take in other types of dementias also, that the help that they need. And I'm saying it now, I'm not looking for funding from anybody. I've worked here for a very long time. My 401k is big enough. I'm going to fund this from my own 401k. So when I retire, I'm taking my 401k money and going to Dominica to establish an Alzheimer's legal aid clinic.
Yeah, it's much needed, much needed. Elder law is much needed in Dominica. But guys, it's 9:01, so let us take a much needed break and then we're going to come back. I think you guys remember the questions I posed before. before Dr. James started speaking. But let's take a break. Go to the studio, Lambi. You can give the phone numbers out as we invite our callers. Facebook, keep the comments coming. I see you, and I will come over to read your comments in just a minute.
Good evening. You're listening and viewing Roots Connection and Q. The numbers to access this program is as follows: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, 305-432-9624. Let me run those numbers one more time. The local numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. The overseas or the international number is 305-432-9624. We're taking your calls. Back to you, Simone.
Yes, thank you. So I will keep an eye out to see if we have any calls coming in. But let's say good evening to our Facebook Live audience. Tremaine, great to have you. Marina Charles says good evening. Not nice. Isidore, good evening, everyone. Siobhan Seraphine, I see my friend. Okay, so Siobhan's friend is here. I'm not sure which friend she's referring to, but we're all friends in this studio. Irreplaceable Gem. Oh, wow. Siobhan has a real friend here. Let's scroll down and see who else is here with us this evening. Dorian Dorival, always great to see you. Blessed night. Greetings to all. Looking forward to another great program. Let's see. T. Gem Laurel King Shaky. She was answering the question at the beginning of the program when we played the song. And Natalie Commodore Jude. I am on here, my girl and the others. Audrey, great to see you. She's locked in. Nice to have you on, Audrey. Lisette is here, rooting for Tika, Tamika. Nice to have you, Evelyn Charles. Omar, great to see you. Bravo and thank you. My mom, Medina Stenhouse, evening all. And Natalie Commodore, these types of programs needs to be done as a series. I think we have a call coming in, so let's pause and take the call.
Good evening, caller. Thanks for joining us. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good
I
evening.
have a concern. I have a 98-year-old mother, and I was talking to someone, a retired police, telling him that the media of Dominica, they don't reach out to elderly. They only wait when they reach to 100. Sometimes they cannot manage, they cannot see, they cannot talk properly. I think these people need to be visited and find out from them whatever they've been through in their lives. Because this mother of mine, she's so brilliant. She's even more alert than I am. I think she deserves someone to reach out to her. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, caller. And Dr. James, that goes back to the rights of the elderly that we've been talking about, right?
Yes, although she's saying people should reach out, so I don't know what she means by reach out. Is it that the elderly person needs food, needs care?
Maybe neglect in general.
Yeah, there might be just general neglect. And that's where you need statutes to take care of this. So someone has to lobby the government to do something. The government needs to wake up to the needs of the elderly, just as we got the Texas legislature to go ahead and pass statutes. And I guess, Chelsea, you're a member of the local bar, right? Chelsea there? Remember, I can't see, so, right?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Okay.
I am. Yes.
Now, do you guys have, I guess not, you don't have an elder law section, right? No?
I'm not aware of any elder law section, but in terms of if somebody has dementia, like you spoke about, you can become a receiver. Like a person can apply to the court to become a receiver under the Mental Health Act to assist that person to deal with the affairs of that person. Once that person passes, though, that ends. So it's not like what Professor James was referring to, because you said it's in a will, correct?
No, you mean the guardianship I'm talking about?
Yes.
No,
Yes, guys, hold 1 minute. We have a call and keep your thoughts. We're going to come right back to you.
Caller, please go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am returning my call. I forgot to mention to Simone, she's from her mother's village.
Oh my, Jubla. Thank you for letting us know.
And this lady can read. She has read the whole book of Felix Henderson. She sees
Mhm.
well. She's capable of handling. She just cannot walk.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Back to you, Chelsea and Dr. James.
Well, first about the lady, I think this sounds more like a social services problem
Right,
rather than a legal problem.
right.
And I do not know anything about social services in Dominica. So I'll
Mhm.
turn back to Chelsea. She's the expert for what's happening on the ground in Dominica.
Not in social services, right, Chelsea?
But I think
Chelsea,
I'm
Chelsea, I left Dominica in 1983. You know, that was a long time ago.
yes, before I was born.
Oh
So
boy. Another call is coming in, guys. Hold your thoughts. Another call is coming in.
Good evening, call on the international line. Please go ahead.
Good evening, good evening. I love your program tonight, but I
Thank
just
you.
want to big up somebody I haven't heard for decades and I haven't seen for decades, but he's one of my role models. And I mean, up to a whole of this month, I was thinking of him because the last time in school, I never know he was dealing with Alwyn Bully. He had a play in ITMS and it come to mind. I always remember Shaky. And Shaky has done good for the community of St. Joseph.
Yes.
I think he used to play for what? I want to say that's Lyndon George, Dr. Shirley Palmo. I used to always admire Shaky, and I think he's in the hospital. Shaky, I pray for good strength for you. I pray God may bless you. God may get you out of the hospital and give you all the strength to take care of your family. And hopefully you will come back to Dominica and, lead the way. Shaky, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lyndon. Thank you very much. And yeah, Alwyn Bully taught me all those things that I taught you guys at ITMS. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Tamika, let me come to you because I believe that you were telling us, well, you told me that there is a way for the elderly to get a green card if it's done by a spouse or a child. You want to elaborate on that for us?
Okay, so in the US, there's something called the Violence Against Women Act. That act also applies to men. But if you are subject to abuse by a US citizen spouse, parent, or child, then you can apply for a green card based on that abuse. So one of my clients was, I think she was like an elderly lady who was abused by one of her children. Neglect. She would be made to lay in her feces the entire day. And we were able to use that to get her the green card so that now she can have a social security number. She can get different services from the state that she would not have qualified for before because she's undocumented. We have people who have been in the US for over 60 years without status. So even if you're young, you can be 20 years old, not 20. You're not going to be 20 and have children old enough to abuse you. But even if you're relatively young, like in your 40s, and you have like a 19 or 21-year-old child who's ill treating you because you're disabled or because you do not have the financial resources for yourself, so they're starving you, they're not contributing financially, you can actually get a green card based on the abuse that you're being subjected to.
That is good to know. And as we have you on the mic, Tamika, I want you to tell us because I'm sure there are a lot of us in Dominica who are thinking of at least getting a visa to try to visit the US. So, what is the best case scenario you can present to immigration to help you to secure that first step in terms of coming to the US, that visa? And before we do, let me just acknowledge one more person who's joining us, Elizabeth Thomas. Liz out there in Massachusetts. So great to see you. She says, what a great program. Such valid information, something as simple as a healthcare proxy, many do not take the initiative to have. So Liz, great to see you. Thank you for your contribution. Tamika, let me come back to you.
Okay. So the visiting visas, is something that I know back in the past people would go to. I remember going upstairs We Church and they would do like flights and those type of things for you when I was much younger. But I've in recent times, I was in Dominica in July. I did some in-person consultations, and every single person that we applied for got approved. And the
Mm.
difference is a lot of times you being denied for a green card, maybe because you're not properly prepped. Some people being denied entry into the US is because you're not properly prepped. For example, I know someone who has been denied 4 times, and they told me, and I'm like, what did you say when you got to the embassy? You have to show significant ties to your country. That is
Mhm.
the biggest thing. You have to show an intent to return. If you do not intend to return, then a visitor's visa is not for you and the denial is correct. So if you have a job, they usually do not even look at your documents because they look at your application. If your application is done correctly, you have a higher chance of success because most times they've made a decision before you even get there. So if you come and say, I've been working at Astafans for 9 years for this amount of money, I have this amount of money in the bank. I'm going to visit my sister in St. Thomas. I am the main caregiver for my parents. I have a child. They're more likely to approve you than the 19-year-old straight out of college who basically has no ties except probably, just their parents. Now, that does not mean that if you do not have a house of your own or a child that you cannot get a visa. It's a matter of just showing what would be making you return to your country. Like I often ask people to get something from their job stating that you're going to be out from this date to that date. So they know that, okay, you've already received authorization for your job, and that shows an intent to return. If you're an entrepreneur, you list all your businesses on your actual application. You walk with the paperwork for your businesses. So they know that this person is not going to just put all of this on the line to just stay in the United States. One of the key things that leads to people being denied is they have petitions pending and they lie about it.
Hmm.
I don't know
Meaning,
why somebody would
meaning.
lie to the people who have to process the application, which means your name is already in the system.
Mhm.
So you have to be honest. If a sibling files for you, that's a 15 to 20-year petition.
Wow.
So realistically, if your brother filed for you in 2020, then the only way you'd be denied a visa based on that is if somehow you showed them an intent to remain, but you would actually be mistaken because there's no way for you to adjust on that petition because it's not going to be current for another 20 something years. So
Hmm.
it just comes down to ensuring that you have all your ties on the application. One big weakness I have with Dominicans is nobody likes to have dates. I say, when did you start working here? And it's and I'm like, I need a date. And then because they don't know the date, they just say last year, not knowing that okay, I've been working in this job for 5 years. It's
Hmm.
gonna benefit me to tell them I've been working here for 5 years
Mhm.
versus saying that, I just started working there. Or if you just started working a job, I would advise you give yourself at least a year before you apply for the green card, the visa, because the chances of you getting approved without significant ties is very, very, very low. I do have some outliers where I was surprised that some people got approved. And I don't know if it's because an attorney did the application, because I have to put my name on the application if I do it. So I can't tell people that people are getting approved because I did the applications, but I can say that it comes down to the ties. It comes down to being prepped for the interview. And also you need adequate coach, not really coaching, but for example, some people try to enter the US and they have conversations on their phone where they're discussing, oh, if I come up there and I get a little work to do, I go and do it. You cannot
Wow.
do that. A visiting visa is to visit. So if you have an attorney or speak to an attorney, we can guide you how to answer the questions and actually save you a lot of heartache. I have to tell a lot of people before they travel, when they get that visa, the first thing I tell them before you leave Dominica, wipe your phone. I don't care if you think you said
Mhm.
anything incriminated or not. Go to your WhatsApp, clear those chats. Because
Yeah,
it could be something very
give me 1 second, Tamika. Lambi, do we have a call?
Yes, we do. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Caller, please go ahead. The caller is there, but the caller isn't saying anything. So please continue.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. He's there.
Yes.
Caller, please go ahead. Hello, please go ahead.
Okay, maybe they'll call back. Yes, go ahead, Tamika.
Yes, I was saying it comes down to knowing what you can and cannot say. Just Sunday, I had to tell someone some very sad information that basically they've been waiting on a green card for, I think it's been about 10 years now, and they're not going to be able to get a green card because they tried to enter the States on a visa, and during their interview or whatever, they kind of admitted that they were going to do some sort of work for someone and they were going to get paid. In their head, oh, I'm just going to do this for the person, they're going to give me a little $200. You cannot say that to officers. Because if you say that to them, that means you're coming to work and you're not coming to visit. Then they had what is called an expedited removal, which is a deportation. So now, because you have a deportation, and sometimes there's a finding of fraud and misrepresentation, you need a qualifying relative to qualify for that waiver. If you don't have a U.S. citizen, spouse, or parent, you can't qualify. So it doesn't matter if you get an approved petition on the other end, but if you have inadmissibilities that you don't qualify for the waiver, you might as well not have had a green card application at all because you're not. So you're going to mess up your chances. So it's very important. I have people asking me, hey, I just got a visa. Is there a way, for me to work? And I'm like, no, do not do any work. I'm sorry, if you're there to visit, you're there to visit. If you do any work, you're going to risk your visa. You're going to risk ever being able to enter the U.S. after that, because a lot of times they will deny any subsequent application, no matter how long you wait.
Yeah, let's try to take a phone call real quick.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. The caller's gone again.
Oh boy, he'll call back. Yeah, Tamika, while we have you on the mic, let us talk, because I think we all know by now the quickest way to get, stay in the U.S. is to marry a U.S. citizen. Let's just be blunt. Let's just be open about this. So tell us about your experiences with people wanting to marry a U.S. citizen in order to earn papers in the U.S. Of course, we know it is illegal to marry someone just to receive papers, but any advice you can provide for those who are still adamant about going that direction?
What I will say is currently, I don't know if it's good or bad, but USCIS has been approving a lot of applications without interviews. Within the last 3 months, I have not been to an immigration interview in person because all my cases are coming back approved without. And some of them with very limited evidence. But what I will warn people is the faster your case gets approved is the higher of the likelihood that you are going to get a conditional green card. Because if you have not been married for 2 years at the time of approval, you get a conditional green card. And that puts you in a position where they're going to vet that marriage again after 2 years. So let's just say you get married for a green card. Yay, I got my green card. But then it's only valid for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, now you have to show them evidence that this was a valid marriage. Now, unless you're very, very good at your fraud, chances are they're going to pick up on it. Because for 2 years, you're going to need to have joint accounts, file taxes together, life insurance, wills, having that person as the person who's going to benefit after your death. I do not see any reason why I would want someone that I have a fake marriage with to be my, to be my authorized user on my credit card, to be my beneficiary on my life insurance, to be on my health insurance, because that's very expensive in the US. It just comes down to the point where it's just going to cost you too much to do it that way. So I always recommend that people go the legitimate way. If you're getting married for love, that's fine. There are lots of routes to green cards. Marriage is not the only way. I have a client right now who's going to be getting the visa based on witnessing and, being there when her sister got stabbed. There are visas for people, let's say you're in the States without papers and there is an employer who's not paying you because they know you don't have papers. They're not paying you the minimum wage. you can get a T visa. There are a lot of stuff that you can do. You can get employment-based visas. There's a lot you can do without going that route. And I always recommend a legitimate route. Personally, I do not take any cases if I have even the inclination that it's fake. Because one of the things I tell people, and I had to tell that to someone very recently, I worked too hard to get where I am today. I worked too hard for this license to jeopardize it for a little $5,000 or $3,000. It makes no sense. That's not going to pay my student loans. I wasn't one of the lucky
Absolutely.
ones, So I have my loans.
Absolutely.
Not going to make sense. There's actually penalties for U.S. citizens and green card holders who engage in these marriages. So you can be actually imprisoned. You can be made to pay a fine, and the fine is often more than the person paid you to marry them in the first place. So in reality, I tell people the best thing to do, look up an attorney in your area, immigration, tell them your entire situation. We're usually able to dig through everything to tell you all of your options. I have a client who came with a severely autistic child. She had to ask me, what are my options? Do I need to marry a U.S. citizen? Do I need to file for asylum? Is this my option? And I was able to say, okay, there's something called medical deferred action for people with sick children that can allow you to stay in the U.S. sometimes for six months to a year, and you're going to be able to renew, you're going to be able to get a work permit. You're going to be able to renew that parole so you can actually be in the U.S. to take care of a sick child. So there are lots of options, and I think a lot of people resort to the marriage ground because they just really don't know better. And that's what's out there. Everybody's pushing it, right? But in reality, deportation is real. It is very heartbreaking to see someone spend 20 years of their life in the US only to find out that they have to leave. Part of my job sometimes is simply going to court to just tell the judge, Your Honor, please don't deport my client. Allow them to leave on their own. Allowing someone to leave on their own versus a deportation has different immigration consequences. So before you get to that point, I think it's important to talk to a lawyer. A lot of people are in deportation because they filed cases on their own and it got denied. And they gave them 33 days to leave the US. They didn't leave because they know Tom, Dick, and Harry who did it and didn't have to leave. So it's just, immigration is a very complex area of law. So I always tell people, it doesn't have to be me, but please speak to an attorney, because the attorney is going to be able, I mean, 150 versus the 15,000 you're going to have to pay for removal defense. I don't know which one of them you rather spend, but I personally would prefer to spend $150 versus $15,000, because removal defense can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Chelsea and Tamika. And we will have you share your contact information towards the end of the program. Chelsea, I want to come back to you because we started talking about some of the common cases that you see and how people can be proactive in, ensuring that it doesn't get to the point where you need to have a court case. So I wanted to talk about that. And then Professor James, I want to come to you because I think one of the things that we're seeing now is that there's an intersection between law in the US, Canada, overseas, and Dominica. So what is that intersection? How can we navigate, those of us who are out here in the US and overseas, how can we navigate doing business in Dominica? So Chelsea, let me come to you. Just tell us some of the more common civil litigation that comes across your desk and how we can be all proactive in, trying to avoid a court case.
Yes, Simone. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I come across a lot of estate matters. That's the area that probate. And it's generally contentious. So, like Professor James would have mentioned, like you have siblings fighting siblings and so on for property. And that's why I encourage clients, before that even gets to that stage, to handle your affairs before you pass. So I encourage clients all the time to prepare wills. And with the preparation of the will, you will be able to basically, the testator, who is the person who basically has the will, is the person, they can definitely just set out exactly what it is they want when they pass. So they will name their executor, who is the person who will carry out their wishes. They'll name their beneficiaries, exactly who they want to, and obviously to do it tightly. We encourage, sometimes clients want to give everybody something when they have very little. And it's not that we don't want all persons to get, but we encourage them sometimes maybe to give the property to one person, or in some circumstances to all, and allow them to sell it, and then the proceeds. Because when you have multiple owners, sometimes that becomes contentious in itself. So we try to encourage clients, especially in that area, to prepare wills, because like I'm saying, I see a lot of estate matters coming to us. Generally, it's contentious, and even with preparation of wills, we find that as well. Some people are contesting a will based on varying factors. The person may not have been lucid at the time, so that goes back to maybe dementia and so on. So you're speaking to the mental state of the testator at the time of the will. We have these issues. Undue influence, maybe a brother, a sister, a child may influence a person to make a will in a particular way. These are some of the issues that are raised. So that's why when we are preparing wills, we encourage the testator basically to be the only person in the room to give us their instructions. We don't allow any family members to be involved, because then that kind of taints the process. We want it to be the testator who is speaking, and it is their own free will, their free mind. We do a varying length of questions to see if the testator is actually in the frame of mind to make a will. So we ask them varying number of questions, their age, their occupation, etc. Just varying background questions to basically decipher the testator's mind at the time. So that's one of the areas that I see quite often in my area of practice. I mean, there are other matters. We do trespass. So,
Yes.
we see a lot of trespass, and these things can be resolved before, but parties tend to be very strong-willed. You see it with disputes with neighbors, with land, and encroachment of boundaries. We see that a lot. I would encourage clients, to get a surveyor to look at your boundaries, to prepare a report based on that, to see if there's any encroachment, and also where mediation comes in, to try and decipher what is there an issue, before you go to court on these kinds of matters. We see that a lot. I think these are mostly the matters that I see that maybe you could prevent it before. But I deal with a number of matters, like I said, mortgage claims a lot, and so on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just boils down to basic respect, especially within neighbors, encroaching on people's boundaries, the noise, the level of music that comes from people's homes. I even remember when I was growing up in Dominica, when I attended the Civil, which is now the Dominica State College, it got to the point where I used to have to go to bed at 6 p.m. and wake up at 1 a.m. to study, because we had a neighbor who was relentless with his loud music throughout the day, throughout the night. And, folks who were interested in studying or just enjoying the peaceful environment of their homes were denied being able to do so because he had a right to play his music. So I think just common decency and just being generally respectful of your neighbors goes a long way in ensuring that you don't have to eventually file a case against anyone. And of course, you wouldn't have the answer to this, but another complaint we get a lot about with regards to the system in Dominica is just the length of time that cases take to go through the court process. So we hear a lot about the length of time, and of course, you don't have any control over that, but that is something that the court systems in Dominica needs to look at, the length of time that cases can sometimes drag on before they are completed. But Professor James,
I agree with you.
Yes, go ahead.
But I think just to mention about that, I agree with you in terms of the length of time. But I think with the Zoom court and so forth, that should definitely decrease the backlog.
Yes.
And not only that, but we had certain intervening factors. Dominica, was hit by a hurricane, and all that, leads to the backlog that we have now. So unfortunately, we have the frequency of hurricanes, and with the Zoom court and so on, if we were, God forbid, to be hit by a natural disaster, then there'll be a seamless transition. We're in a better place now than we were when we were hit by Maria, because files are now on the portal, and we have the court and Zoom matters. So I think we will have a seamless transition and a quicker time for recovery in terms of our court sessions, now that we are moved into that technology area. So
yeah, just tell us a little bit more about the Zoom court cases, Chelsea, because I think that is fascinating. But there has to be some challenges involved in that, because whereas in a court of law you have an enclosed environment that is pretty much private, in a Zoom it might be that the litigants are in an open environment where other folks can be a part of the conversation. Let's talk about the need to still be dressed appropriately, act appropriately, because you're in court. So kind of just tell us about the Zoom court cases, how they are handled, and some of the benefits and challenges. And then Professor James, I'm coming to you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, of course, we have to preserve the integrity of the court. And that's an important factor when you have a Zoom court. But I must say that everything that you would do in a physical court, you have to do that in the Zoom court. So you have to be properly dressed or properly robed, you would call it for a lawyer. So the judge in open court will definitely not address you if you're not robed, because your camera has to be open, your mic is open, and the judge will see what you're wearing. So obviously, and I must say lawyers are following that. So that's not an issue. And then I haven't actually done a trial via Zoom. I've done definitely a lot of court appearances, but these are just for like applications and, first hearings, etc. But I know that there are things in place. For example, if a court hearing, like an actual trial were to take place, then a party, it can actually happen in person as well. So we do have a court where people can actually prefer trial in person, right? That is for an actual trial with the hearing of witnesses, etc. Or they could choose full Zoom as well. So the witnesses now is an important part to encourage transparency. I think what they're trying to do is actually have an office area, where a witness is not in a room where they can, review stuff and so on. They're able to stay in a court area or court office area room where they're actually monitored. And I think that would encourage transparency of the whole process and people's faith in the system. Mm-hmm. So you do have the option to actually go in person and have a trial. So that is not out the door. But the general running of the court is basically via Zoom. And so far, it has been going very well.
Excellent, excellent. So while I go over to Professor James, if you and Tamika, if there's any contact information that you would like to share, you can go ahead and post it in the comment section, or for you, Chelsea, you can post it in the private chat section on the StreamYard, and I will be more than happy to share it with the audience. So if you have any contact information for anyone who might be interested in contacting you, you can go ahead and just post it, and I will read it out to our audience. But Professor James, a very important question. As more of us continue to make our homes outside of Dominica, but we have interests, business interests, land interests, home interests in Dominica, do you have any thoughts on how the laws of the US and the laws of Dominica are intersecting at this point?
One of the biggest areas of intersection I find is in the area of probate, because you have people who have property in Dominica who left Dominica years ago. They either have a will that they executed in Dominica or a will that they executed in the United States, giving away property which is in Dominica. Mm-hmm. And then they have certain property in the United States also. Now, the person dies and the question becomes, where do you probate the will? Up here, we say, well, the situs of the property controls how the property is being distributed. So in cases like that, you need probate in the US and probate in Dominica. So that's where I'll be happy to get Chelsea's information somehow, I don't know, since I can't see it, but I'll get it.
Yes, I can get it to you, Professor. I can get it to you.
Then when I have cases like that, I can call her up and say, Chelsea, do you remember me? You know, I'm this fellow that you were in the program with, and I have this case which needs ancillary probate in Dominica. So we can do the primary probate, start off in Texas, and get ancillary probate for the property in Dominica.
Yes.
And so a Dominican lawyer would handle that property in Dominica, and the other stuff that's in Texas or in New York, since I practice there also, would be handled up there. So we see how these things intersect, right? So probate is one of these big areas where we have the intersection of the laws, and we can have probate in Dominica, probate in the US for the same person who died. And it doesn't matter whether the will was executed in Dominica or the will was executed up here. It would work out quite fine. Now, another big area of intersection I find is in the area of taxation, because we have people who live in Dominica, but they're really residents of, say, New York or of Texas or of Atlanta or Savannah or Alexandria, Virginia or something. And being scattered there, they are US citizens or residents. They earn money in the US. They must pay taxes on their worldwide income. We have this law in America. You pay taxes on your worldwide income. So you make money in Dominica, you must pay taxes to the US on the money you earned in Dominica. That income, you pay taxes to the US government. Of course, there is the tax credit, the foreign tax credit, which will kind of nullify that. But this has to be taken into consideration. And there's also this little beast of a statute called FATCA, which we all have to be very careful about. It's where if you have an account in a foreign country and you're an American citizen or resident, then you have to report on your tax return on Schedule B that you have this foreign account. And you know what? Many people from Dominica do not complete Schedule B. Mm-hmm. I guess they're not aware that that is a crime punishable by 3 years as a guest of the United States government for each year that you do not report that you have this account. I represented a client some time ago. He hadn't done it for 3 years, and he deserved 9 years in jail. The judge was kind enough and gave him 3 years instead. But for 3 years, he had this account, and he hadn't been reporting. And the IRS caught up with him, and there was a big stink. I believe that, you know, his reason was that, well, the money was his father's own, and his name was on the account because he was taking care of his father, and the father wanted, should the father die, then his son would be able to come down from the States and simply take charge of things. Doesn't matter. He had to report it on Schedule B of his tax return. He failed to do that. The IRS caught up with it. After a while, bam, drags him to jail. Off we go to federal court, and he was convicted. Wow. So we have to look out for these areas where the law conflict, and we need lawyers who will tell you the truth and will tell you, do what is right. It doesn't hurt to simply say, yes, I have an account in a foreign country. You're not going to tax you. You're not going to steal your money. I know it's a draconian piece of statute because the penalties are rather stiff, but go ahead and do what has to be done. And with probate, hire 2 lawyers, because you have the property in Dominica, you have the property in the US. So by all means, take care of things that way. Yeah, but you mentioned something about the Zoom courts, and I want to mention quickly, Zoom courts, I thank God for Zoom courts, because I'll tell you the truth, over the past several years, I've been to the actual courthouse for court only once. I have lots of cases, but I've been to the courthouse only once. The judges know me well, secret. Most of them are former students of mine. And so I go to court in this very office where I am right now. Every bit of equipment in this office is owned by Texas Tech University, but the office is located at my home. It's my home office. But Texas Tech University set it up. They put everything in it. The equipment is owned by them, everything owned by them, and I operate from here. Wow! And I'm very, very thankful for Zoom courts.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So, guys, I want to just open up your mics and share any thought. I think we have a call coming in, Rambi. Yes.
Yes, there's
And
a
then,
call.
guys, let's just open up the mics and you can share anything you would like to share at this point.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Very interesting program, very informative.
Thank
However, I
you.
just want to make some comment. Much of what of y'all are talking about really happens in the High Court, and Ms. Frampton was speaking about the processes in the High Court. But the average Dominican, when they think about court, is really magistrate's court, where a lot of the work is done. And she mentioned, having mentioned about trial by Zoom and how that would help in terms of the backlog. I think she would have had to differentiate and say, well, she was referring to the High Court, because in the magistrate's court we don't have trial by Zoom. It's a completely different process. And a lot of times when people talk about cases taking long and so on, they are usually referring to the magistrate's court. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
Yes, thank you very much, caller.
Okay, then.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for those comments. Yes, guys, so I just want you to open your mic. Anything that we missed, anything you would like to mention at this point. And I think one of the questions on our audience's mind this evening might be, what is the recourse if you pay your lawyer and they're not doing the work? So I know you guys all do the work that you're paid for, but is there a recourse if you hire an attorney and you're just not getting any forward movement on your case? What is the recourse? But that's and anything else you would like to share at this point.
Okay, while on the subject of Zoom, I thought it was very important to just touch on it for immigration purposes. One of the myths is that your immigration lawyer needs to be in your state. That is not true. I've represented people in the court in Puerto Rico, New York, California. As long as your attorney knows what they need to do, they can actually request their hearing be done by WebEx. We use Cisco WebEx here in the immigration courts, and your attorney can actually represent you from anywhere. Now, what's the benefit of hiring a lawyer who's not in your state? Florida rates are going to be different from California or New York rates. So you may be able to get cheaper attorney's fees by hiring an attorney from a state that generally has a lower cost of living than the state where you are. So I just thought that was like a little cool thing to tell people. So if you're in removal proceedings, you don't have to go with, the most expensive lawyer down the street. You can find a very competent attorney probably in a different state. You just never know. With regards to what happens if you hire a lawyer and the lawyer does not do what they have to do, I'm gonna tell you guys it's not really funny, but it's a crazy story where I had a client from Dominica who was in removal proceedings, and when I examined the case file, I found out that that client was a U.S. citizen at birth, and he just didn't know it. So when I did my intake, I found out that this client, born in Dominica, was a U.S. citizen. Now the question becomes, how does a U.S. citizen end up in removal proceedings? The attorney who filed the case before did not do their due diligence and did not do the proper checks to basically make sure that the application they were filing should have been filed. So I actually contacted that attorney's office with my client, and I laid it out for them, and I said to them, you did not do your jobs here. If you had done your jobs, this application would not have been filed, and this client would not have been in deportation proceedings. And at first, they fought me on it. And then when the managing partner came back to me, he admitted that they looked at their files, and the client did, in fact, let them know that his father was a U.S. citizen at the time of his birth. And the firm basically did not do what they were supposed to do. So it just turns out that this guy, who's a citizen, got a visa to come to the States, where citizens are not supposed to even get visas. And that law firm actually sent me a check for the legal fees paid to them by that client. And that money was used towards covering the legal fees that that client has to pay to me. Now, removal defense is a lot more expensive than filing a green card application. So there is, possible litigation and stuff that might come out of that. but it just goes to show that there is recourse if an attorney does not do what they're supposed to do. You have the state bar. Most attorneys will give your money back because discipline will mess with their malpractice insurance. It will also mess with, their reputation, their legal reputation. So most attorneys, when they do wrong, they will be willing to just give you back your money and try to make it right in whatever way that they can. Some attorneys try to go to bat with clients over this, and it usually does not turn out well for them in cases where there is just clear malpractice. In Dominica, on the other hand, I will say from personal experience, because I have clients, like my practice is multi-jurisdictional because some clients of mine have criminal issues in Dominica or civil issues in Dominica, and they've paid attorneys who haven't done anything, and apparently I don't really see a regulating body that enforces anything. Maybe there is one, but I don't necessarily think it's active because I know for a fact that one attorney was extremely unethical with what he advised the client to do. And I had to tell the client, no, I'm not, like, we're not paying nobody off. No.
Mm-hmm.
So try to report it, but who do you report it to? You go to the
Mm-hmm.
Dominican Bar Association and nobody does anything about it, especially because a lot of these attorneys have clout because they've been practicing for so long, and it's almost like a boys' club sometimes. So I honestly think that in Dominica, the Bar Association needs to take more of a disciplinary role and actually discipline their attorneys and have like a set rule of, professional conduct and actual, because I know of this one attorney who took somebody's money from a purchase of land, and you had to take him to court, civil court, because there's nothing the Bar Association would do about it.
Did we have, I'm sorry, Tamika, did we have a call coming in?
Yeah, there are a couple of calls in there. Let's see if the person's still there.
Yes, I'm sorry, Tamika, just let's try to take a call.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yes, one question I want to ask. As an American citizen, we have been struggling that. I know you haven't touched on that tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Can an American citizen just leave America and go Dominica and vote? Can you vote two places at the same time? As an American citizen, can you just leave America, go Dominica and vote and come back to America without there is no consequences? If they catch you, if it's by law, you could do that. Thank you.
Yes, good question, caller. Tamika, your thoughts?
Well, I guess we're asking specifically in the context of Dominica. That question is less with regards to the American citizen, like the American part of it, than the Dominica part of it.
Right.
If your country is one that allows for dual citizenship, some countries don't. I will tell you now, you cannot be a dual citizen. Like my Indian clients, they don't want to naturalize because they don't want to lose their Indian citizenship. But if your country allows for dual citizenship, then what dictates whether you can vote or not is the laws in your country. Now, I believe the laws of Dominica have residency requirement. Chelsea might be able to tell me a bit more about that, but that is what is going to dictate whether you can vote or not necessarily whether you're an American citizen or not.
Yes, so Chelsea, I'll have you share your thoughts on that. But before we do, in case you want to get in touch with Tamika, her website is judelawoffice.com, JUDE, law, LAW, office, OFFICE.com, and her phone number is 866-724-5833. Again, 866-724-5833, judelawoffice.com if you're looking to get in touch with Tamika. Chelsea, let me come over to you for your thoughts, and then Professor James, I'll come right to you. Chelsea, you're muted.
I just wanted to really touch on the prior point first. About the Dominica Bar Association, because I am a member. I have been a executive member as well, and a lot of people have the impression that the Bar Association has a lot and can regulate. We can't. It's just an association. It's a body of lawyers. We just have a membership. there's no way that we can regulate what the lawyers do. That's where the Legal Profession Act comes in, which which hasn't been passed. So that's why you have these issues arising, and people think, oh, the Bar Association, they should do this, they should do that. But really and truly, we can take complaints and obviously handle the complaints, but with no real backing, if you know what I'm saying. It's really maybe to just discuss with the lawyer, this was said about you, etc. But there's nothing the Bar Association can really do about that. And that's what I think needs to be made clear. What we need is the Legal Profession Act, which will guide the conduct of lawyers. And then that's where people will have redress. They will definitely be able to use that and, make lawyers accountable for the issues that you raised. And also, not only make them accountable, but it'll definitely guide, what lawyers, their conduct and their ethical conduct and what they do, in practice, and which many of the other islands have. I know we had a draft bill, so it's not that they haven't spoken about it. There was a draft bill, we have revised it. The Bar Association has looked at it, but it hasn't been passed yet. So that is still, it's basically still a draft. It's still a draft. So the Bar Association really cannot do anything. Like I mentioned, it's a membership of lawyers, and actually not every member of the bar, right? Or I should say not every person who is called to the bar is actually a member of the Bar Association. It's a choice, whereas the Legal Profession Act will guide all lawyers who are called to the bar. This is just an association. So you pay a membership and you become a member. You don't have to be a member of the Bar Association.
Right.
So exactly. So I understand the point that people want somewhere to go to, for their issues and concerns when dealing with lawyers and their conduct. But unfortunately, the Bar Association cannot do much in that regard. However, I mean, a litigant or client can take a lawyer to court if they choose to, but that would be like, obviously a private suit and so on. So that
Thank you, Chelsea, for clarifying that. And if you would like to get in touch with Chelsea, she is with Prevo Roberts and Associates on Kennedy Avenue in Roseau, and the phone number is 448-5832. Again, 767-448-5832, and the email address is prevost _Roberts, ROBERTS, CDF@CWDOM.DM. So Prevo _Roberts, CDF@CWDOM.DM, and the phone number again, 767-448-5832. Professor James, let me come over to you for your final thoughts. And I am just wondering if there's an email address we can share for anyone who would like to get in touch with you.
Yes, my email is pretty easy. It's Vaughn, VAUGHN, Vaughn.James, as in King James, at TTU.edu. That's kind of easy enough, right?
Yes, and I will post it on Facebook as well for anyone who would like the information. And I'm also going to post Chelsea's email address as well. So yes, Professor James, your final thoughts.
Yes, on the matter of attorneys who misbehave, I'll say for listeners who are in New York, we do have the Attorney Grievance Committee. They're all based on the various districts in New York. I worked for the Grievance Committee for 2 years, from 1996 to 1998, and we basically discipline attorneys who misbehave. That's one way you can complain about your attorney. It will be investigated, and they will be duly disciplined. If they're found guilty, if they're not, then of course they are not disciplined. Here in Texas, if the attorney is misbehaving, you complain to the state bar, and the state bar, if there's grounds, will indeed investigate and will discipline the attorney. So there are ways and means up here to discipline attorneys who misbehave. And as I said, for 2 years, I worked with the committee in New York. I hope in Dominica they get something going. Chelsea is quite right. It has to take an act of parliament to get that thing going. Lawyers on their own just cannot say, well, we have a committee. It has to be done by the government. And
Right.
so good luck lobbying and getting these things done.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so thank you. Thank you to our panel. We had Miss Chelsea Frampton, Professor Shaky Vaughn James King Shaky out of Dominica, and we had Miss Tamika Jude, immigration lawyer out there in Florida. So I want to thank you all for stopping by to educate and inform us about all the changes that are going on in the field for law. And as I'm trying to wrap up here, I'm also trying to post Chelsea's email address because I know she's not on Facebook. So I will do so in just a minute in case you wanted to get in touch with her. But again, thank you. Thank you to our loyal listeners around the world, our Q95 FM radio followers on Facebook and YouTube, and of course, on Push Past 10 as well for being a part of this conversation. And of course, we always have some important updates to share with you as we continue to collaborate and build those networks that will move Dominica forward. So I have some great news to share with you this evening. You will remember that Dr. Glean was with us recently with Dr. Catherine Polido. Catherine is from Dominica, and we talked about the two universities that were looking to recruit Dominican and Caribbean students to attend the university. Well, they've taken it one step forward. And mark your calendar, from June 4th to June 6th of this year, we are inviting 4 additional universities to Dominica. So 4 additional universities will be on the ground in Dominica on July 4th to July 6th. And they will be talking about opportunities for higher education at their universities. And I know a lot of times we are very suspicious of foreigners, and we can see Dr. Glean is not from Dominica, so we can become suspicious. But I want you to know that unlike other people who have landed in Dominica and have taken advantage of us in Dominica, Dr. Glean's interest is really the Caribbean. So I mentioned he's not from the Caribbean, but keep in mind his mom is from Grenada, his dad is from Barbados, and he has 30 years of experience with providing opportunities for students like me, who went through his program and was able to earn our bachelor's and master's degrees. So he is a trusted source. I know we are very suspicious of foreigners, but we have no reason to be suspicious of his intention. So again, June 4th to June 6th, you can expect them to be on the ground. If you would like more information about this, we will be posting the updates on pushpast10.com, pushpast10.com, and we continue to build, we continue to grow with other collaborations. As a matter of fact, I had someone reach out to me, and we are now starting what we are calling Diaspora for Good. So what is Diaspora for Good? It is going to be a one-stop resource where we're going to do 2 things. The first thing is we're going to highlight the work of Dominican influencers. So people who have made a significant contribution to Dominica in some way, some form. And if you've been following me a long time, you will remember that when I started off, we were doing these interviews with the like of Dale Dangleben, with the likes of Gordon Henderson and Shelley Sheldon and Colin XP. So we already have a huge database of Dominican influencers. So we're going to feature to motivate and inspire our young people and everybody on the people who have blazed the path for those of us who are coming along the way. So we're going to feature them. And secondly, the second important thing, Tamika, mute your mic a little bit for me, please. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to build a network. So you can already see we have 3 professionals here in the area of law. So we want to build a network so that if, for example, you're in New York and you're thinking, you know what, I want to support my Dominican community by hiring a contractor who is from Dominica, by hiring an immigration lawyer, by hiring a lawyer who's involved in elder law, by hiring a lawyer who's involved in civil litigation, we're going to create a database where we will be easily able to find the folks that we can recommend so that they will be able to be a part of a network of professionals from Dominica as we continue our theme this year of investing in us, invested in me. So we have a lot of great initiatives coming along, and I just want to thank everyone who is in the background working on this, reaching out to me saying, what can we do, including Omar Monell and Alvin Thomas, who are always on these programs. So I want to thank everyone who continues to reach out. Tad, Black Pepper James, always in my corner, providing advice and guidance. So we have a lot coming up. We also have some ebooks that we're working on. I don't know where I find the time, right? Some ebooks where we're going to bring the culture and the history of Dominica to life via puzzles. So we have a lot of great initiatives in the pipeline. So I hope that you will continue to follow us, and you will continue to follow Q95 FM and Q95DA.com so you can stay on top of everything that we're doing. You can be a part of it. If you have suggestions, maybe you have some folks you would like to recommend as part of the network, as part of the Dominican influencers, you can always send me an email at pushpast10@gmail.com, pushpast10@gmail.com, as we continue to work along. So let me take a couple of quick comments. I know it is now 10 p.m., but let us just make sure we take a couple of quick comments before we wrap up this evening. We have Eleanor Smith. Good evening to you. Ronnie Royer Matthew, good evening to you. Let's take some comments from folks we haven't seen yet. Is there a call coming in? Oh, I thought I heard you. Giselle Commodore Libert says, great program. So everyone, thank you for being here. Don't forget, we will be back in 2 weeks. I believe that is going to be, actually, it's not 2 weeks. We will be back on April 19th, I want to say, for the next, April 12th, for the next episode of Roots Connections on Q. I am Simone Mathieu, and this evening we talked about how the field of law is evolving and changing and the benefits. And don't forget, if you missed any portion of the program, you can always go back on Q95DA.com to catch the entire program, or you can log on to Facebook and YouTube at Q95 FM Radio and Push Past 10 on Facebook to catch up on every part of the information you may have missed along the way. So thank you, Lambi, thank you, Showin, thank you, DJ Shan, Professor James, Chelsea, Tamika, our Q95 listeners around the world, Facebook, YouTube, and everyone who was a part of the program. We want to say good evening to you, and we look forward to joining you for another engaging program in the near future. So everyone, unmute your mic and say good evening, and thank you for being here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bye.
Good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for
Bye.
being here. Thank you, Lambi.
Right.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you.